Welcome to MAGA Uncovered. It's the 12th episode. We've been doing this for 12 weeks, Ron Filipkowski. How did that even happen?
Time flies when you're having fun covering MAGA, right?
I saw a few messages from people, preempting this show saying, what's the point in you guys being on today? There's nothing to talk about. Just take the week off. And I was thinking, well, that would be nice. But as it happens, we are here because this is the only show that uncovers MAGA in such a way that goes uncovered by the mainstream media. So the clue is in the title. Ron Filipkowski is that guy there, and I'm Anthony Davis. And Ron, we should start, before we get into Trump and the indictment and RICO and Giuliani and Sidney Powell and all of the cast of characters, the gallery of curios, I thought we would start with a little special announcement from you regarding your new role with MeidasTouch. Tell us about it.
Sure. Well, this is a great opportunity, and I'm so happy to have it. And we haven't formally announced it yet, although we've been going for a couple of weeks now. I think everybody's seen the website and the work that we've done, but probably wondering what's going on. So during the 2022 election cycle, I was trying my hardest to cover all of the different candidates and the campaigns, Republican candidates. And many times I expressed my frustration that I had to practice law from 9 to 5. And, I was busy doing that, so I could only do so much. And so what happened was I decided to only cover about 16 candidates. I was only able to focus on those 16 and do the best that I could with those 16. 12 of them lost. And so, again, I expressed my frustration, and the guys with Meidas saw that. And then when they decided that they wanted to start a new news website, and they wanted to do news in a totally different way, package it and present it in a different way than the mainstream media does, they reached out to me because they remembered me expressing the frustration that I had with not having enough time to do what I wanted to do politically. And I really wanted to do it a lot in 2024. So they asked me to do it, to become the editor-in-chief of the website, to run the website with a bunch of very talented researchers and writers working with me on it, and to give up law practice. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm essentially giving up my law practice, phasing it out now, should be completely done in November. And I will be doing this, and I will be doing politics and running the MeidasTouch.com website full time. So far, by the way, first 2 weeks, we have over 4 million hits on the website already. So that's tremendous.
What's brilliant about this? Firstly, congratulations. Secondly, what's brilliant about this is the timing is very helpful with the downfall of Twitter, because people don't really know where to go now, to scroll for a news feed, as Elon Musk has ruined Twitter and turned it into this kind of Russian-operated far-right propaganda social media site. And there's been like a dozen other of these social media sites that have cropped up trying to be the winner in the race. And actually what's so clever about this is it takes people off of all of these different sites and gives them a central place to get their news. And actually, if you choose the news option, it scrolls like a feed. So it's a little bit like finding the news on social media, but at MeidasTouch.com.
Yeah, you've got myself, you've got Asen, you got Patriot Takes, you've got other guys, guy named Troy, who's also on Twitter. You got the Meidas brothers. We're posting, 20, 25, 30 stories a day as they're happening, breaking. And we're not just writing, the both sides of it. We're including the clips and the highlights and letting people see the clips for themselves. So yeah, that sort of was the idea. It was, as people are looking for an alternative to Twitter, we wanted to provide that for them, where they could get all the news on politics that's breaking. We're covering Democrats and Republicans, which is also new for me, because now I get to do stories about Democrats instead of just covering MAGA. So yeah, hopefully people will, if they're looking to leave Twitter, will find a home with us.
That's great. Well, people can start now as they're watching this. Go to MeidasTouch.com and see all the action and follow the show along there. Let's get straight into the meat of this conversation, and that is that the Georgia state law against racketeering could be a powerful tool in prosecuting Donald Trump. but applying charges traditionally used to take down organized crime risks miring the case in legal and logistical complications, it's being said. So I'm very keen for you to kind of debunk these issues around the racketeer-influenced and corrupt organizations, or RICO law, because this was originally designed to take down mafia bosses, wasn't it?
Here's what I can tell you. I mean, I did one racketeering trial. It was the most significant case of my career. I've done over 300 trials. I've done 6 murder trials, and nothing prepared me for the racketeering trial, because the rules and the evidence and everything, the law is so completely different than everything that you would anticipate in criminal law. And I'll just give you an example, because in racketeering, once you prove that you're part of a criminal organization or a criminal enterprise, it doesn't have to be something like the mafia. It could be anything. It could be a drug trafficking ring, could be a burglary ring where there's multiple people involved. There's a hierarchy, there's a boss. The boss of the organization may not even know what the underlings are doing on a day-to-day basis, but they're all part of the same criminal enterprise. In my trial went for a month. Probably about 4 days of that month was stuff about what my client did. So normally in a criminal trial, if your client is charged with murder or burglary, the only evidence that would be brought in is the evidence that pertained to what he did on that day. Right. But in a racketeering case, you present that, but you also present all of the crimes committed by all of the other people in the organization. That's what's the frustrating part when you're trying to defend these, is that you're sitting there and they're presenting all these other crimes by all these other people that your client may not have even known about, but your client was part of that group. And so,
and there's 18 of them in this case.
So much stuff.
There's 18 co-defendants in.
Let me give you an example in the Trump indictment of this. Yeah. So let's just take 2 things: the threats and intimidation of Ruby Freeman. Okay, how Kanye West publicist and a Trump lawyer and a pastor, that were all calling her, going to her house, leaning on her. Again, Trump was harassing Ruby Freeman with his Twitter account, but he may not have known specifically what those people were doing on his behalf at her house, but they were doing it on his behalf, and clearly with knowledge of some of the people involved. So that would be normally something, if Trump was just charged with tampering with the election, that would never come into the case because he wasn't directly involved with that. But it does come in the context of RICO. Same thing with Sidney Powell going down to Coffee County, which is a tiny county in the Okefenokee swamps in southeast Georgia. They went down there with a computer firm to hack the voting machines because that was basically the only county that was going to let them do it. And so, again, Trump wasn't directly involved in that, but Sidney was doing it for Trump. So that would normally be something that wouldn't be allowed in a criminal case, but it is allowed in a RICO case. So yes, there's more stuff to prove. It's a ton more work. It's a lot more evidence, but it's also a lot more damaging to a defendant when it plays out like that.
The indictment was compelling reading, and I encourage everybody to read it. It's linked on the MeidasTouch website. But I feel like, some critics have been saying that Fani Willis has maybe created a case that's going to be impossible to hear because you have so many defendants and it's so huge. And obviously the wheels of justice turn very slowly. Is it going to be possible to actually, see this through?
I know she's asking for a March 4th trial date, I think, the first week of March. The trial would take minimum a month, minimum. It's very sprawling, lots of witnesses. You're talking about Georgia senators, Georgia election officials, Georgia state officials, people from DC, people from even Wisconsin and Arizona are part of the case.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a sprawling, huge case. I would be shocked if it's tried in March. My guess is he's probably looking more at the summer, which would, he could be doing this back to back with the January 6th trial, they could be going one right after the other. And I don't see how he's going to be running a presidential campaign when he's going to be in court, and he can't not show up for those things. I mean,
I was going to ask you this.
How
is he going to run a presidential campaign? Because, it's
know.
basically a year. It's exhausting. I mean, it kills people doing these types of the travel and all the rallies. I mean, the guy never stopped doing rallies even when he was president. It was like he was electioneering for 2020 from 2016 onwards. Didn't work, but I mean, he's always, because it makes him feel good to be in front of the people, to be in front of the crowd. It kind of gives him dopamine or something. But if he's going to be in court every other week, it's going to screw with the schedule. I mean, it's going to make it very difficult to win the election.
Well, and that's why he argues it's election interference. But, hey, it is what it is. You're the one who chose for president while you're being, under indictment. This you made this bed. You gotta lie in it now. So, and that's not just all the days he has to be in court. He has to prepare. He has to get with his lawyers and talk strategy, meet with witnesses. And he's going to try and micromanage every aspect of this trial. So of his trial. So, I mean, I could see him literally being tied up with court cases for 4 months straight, like every single day during the most important time. And it's probably about the time that he would be securing the nomination. So the other problem for the Republican Party is, let's say he's the nominee, and then you have him convicted and going to jail. I mean, what are they going to do then? It's just, and the thing is, so many of the Republicans are just in complete denial about this. Like, everything will work out. I'm not sure if they have another plan, a plan B.
And let's not forget that 147 Republicans voted to overturn the election. So, I mean, they a lot of them still believe in the coup. And they think the coup is a real thing. I'm sure some of them are peeling off now, and some of them are going to start to distance themselves from Trump, who is increasingly toxic because of all of these charges. But for me, that's the rub. The point at which Trump becomes too toxic to be a clear kind of primary winner. And as you say, because there is no plan B, that's why I stand by my prediction that it'll be Mike Pence.
Well, I don't know about that.
I know why you totally disagree, but because I'm basing that on the fact that the MAGA supporters, that the ones who hate Mike Pence because they think he didn't do what he was supposed to do, they are diminishing. They are far smaller percentage of Republicans as a whole than Trump would have us think.
I mean, Pence is the safest play if you're an establishment Republican.
And he's done it before in the same way that Biden was a vice president and then Biden won. So to have Pence, who was a vice president, he knows how to walk the walk and talk the talk, albeit in a really annoying manner.
The problem is, though, that 25% of the base, that Trump base, they will not vote for Mike Pence, even if he's the nominee. Yeah, so it's funny. You hear all the media constantly asks Republican politicians if they will support whoever the nominee is, Donald Trump, but they never ask MAGA. No. Why don't you ask MAGA, will you support a nominee if it's not Donald Trump? And the answer is no, they will not. And so what are they going to do? How are they going to get those 20 million people to show up for Mike Pence? It's not going to happen.
I understand that, but you see, to me, the way politics works that we forget sometimes is that it's a house of cards, and there's going to be a whole bunch of collapsing playing cards before you get to the Mike Pence card.
Oh, true.
Right?
Yeah.
And that is what I look forward to, is that you never know what is around the corner.
True.
And Fani Willis has really done quite an amazing job, and I loved the speech that she made. She was like vitriolic when she was announcing these charges. Were you as frustrated as I was when this indictment got leaked on the court website? It was like a moment where a clerk accidentally put the indictment up whilst the grand jury was still in session, and then it got removed quickly. And that really frustrated me because Trump was able to seize on that, and his lawyers, and go, well, it's obviously rigged, because they know what they're getting before it's agreed upon.
Here's the thing. In this business, you can't make mistakes. You just can't. And I'm talking about when you're prosecuting somebody very high profile in a very serious case, the most high profile ever. You can't make mistakes, even little mistakes, especially against these people, because they look for anything. They look for the smallest thing, and then they drive a truck through that thing.
And that's
right?
but that's the house of cards that could end up with Mike Pence. Do you see what I mean? It's like you just don't know. And
So-
sure, the obvious choice is DeSantis. We're going to talk about him a little bit later, but to all intents and purposes, his campaign is on its knees. And where do you stand with Chris Christie at this point in time?
By the way, let me just go back to that document. So what that was clearly, that's the draft paperwork that's going to be submitted to the grand jury for their signature. So when the cover sheet of that was inadvertently filed, probably by a clerk or something, yes, that makes them say, oh, the fix is in, they already had the indictment before they even voted. I mean, it gives the conspiracy theorist fodder. So Chris Christie, that's what you just asked about, Christie, right? Yeah, he's getting momentum. He's going up in the polls. He has learned the lesson that none of the other non-Trumpers have learned, which is there is still a hunger. There is still a part of the Republican Party who wants to move away from Trump. Not necessarily because they all hate him, just because he's damaged goods and they're ready to move on and they don't think he can win. And none of the other candidates seem to be able to figure out that what you need to say to win those people over. Chris Christie is saying the things that you need to say. And I think he's just going to continue, unless one of these other guys starts doing the same thing. He's just going to continue to go up and up, because what is Nikki Haley offering? What is Tim Scott offering? What is Mike Pence offering? Nothing. And so Christie is speaking to those people who want an alternative to Trump.
Trump's not going to do any of the debates, is he?
He's definitely not doing the first one. I mean, we know that for sure. He's refused to sign the loyalty pledge. So now Ronna has to he's never going to sign it. And I've said that many times. He'll never sign it to support the nominee if it's not him. And so what Ronna has to do now is just completely back down and just say, okay, forget the loyalty pledge, that she twisted the arms of everybody else to sign.
Change the rules for Trump.
Change the rules for Trump again. I predict what I've said. I wrote this in an article, is that on the MeidasTouch.com, was what I thought was going to happen is all of Trump's people are telling him not to debate because they know he has nothing to gain from it. But he's going to sit home. He's going to watch that first debate. Some of them are going to be attacking him. And it's going to grate on him. It's going to bother him so much to sit home and not be part of the spotlight, not be the star of the show, that I predict he will show up for the next one or the one after that, because I just don't think he's going to be able to handle sitting at home.
I totally agree. And it's a little bit like when Judge Tanya Chutkan told him to zip it, and he couldn't. He just continued to go for the throat. And he is uncontrollable. I mean, he is mentally ill, and that is presenting itself. He's his own worst enemy, basically. And so he won't just be in contempt, but, I mean, will he even make it to trial? He might be jailed before then. We should say very quickly that they're now saying Fulton County Jail is going to book him, photograph him, and all of the things that you didn't get with these kind of federal indictments, you're actually going to put Donald Trump through the ringer in order to really push that point home that he is considered, is considering a serious prosecution.
Yeah, and it's funny because his attorneys are out there complaining about this, saying, "Oh, the only purpose of a mugshot is for if you're a flight risk and to identify the person." And that's the excuse that they made not to mugshot him before. That's nonsense. Look, I've got clients who've been arrested 50 times. They take they've got 48 other mugshots, but they still take them every time, because you just have to treat everybody the same. What they argued, Alina Habba argued last night, he's the most famous man in the world. Why do they need a mugshot? But look, the reality is he's going to sell the T-shirts with his mugshot on it. He's going to make money off it. Democrats are going to make money off. It's just it's going to be the most famous mugshot in the world.
You can guarantee, though, that any Trump merchandise will be a photoshopped version of the mugshot. The real mugshot you'll only be able to get at MeidasTouch.com. Okay, let's talk about Mike Lindell, because he has the answers to everything, Ron. He has a huge summit that kind of was launched today, but it's the big deal is happening tomorrow, where he will be exposing the truth and, as he claims, changing the world. Let's take a look at the clip, and then we'll find out what this is all about.
Springfield, Missouri, ready for the big event, this election summit, August 16th and 17th, this Wednesday and Thursday from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. on frankspeech.com. You guys need to watch this. Everybody, we need to spread the word. We're going to reveal the plan that's going to secure our elections immediately. We're going to be live streaming in 85 languages around the world. So please share this out now, and God bless you all. Thanks.
I'm sure the people in Azerbaijan are going to be thrilled for a translation. What is he talking about? Because I think he announced earlier today, or I saw him up on the stage saying, we're not going to give you any more evidence of election interference. We've got enough of that.
Yep. He said this is not the old stuff. This is all something completely new. He said only, I think, 12 people he has told about it.
Oh.
One of them was Michael Flynn, who's very enthusiastic about the plan, which tells you probably
his mom,
how bad
his neighbor,
it is.
His doctor. I mean, who else has he told?
So I was curious, I dropped in and listened to his opening speech today, which was about 45 minutes. And what he said was that God told him this plan. God came to him in a dream, told him this plan. So what he said today. And basically what God also told him is that anybody who doesn't accept this and believe in this plan is with Satan. Is with the devil. So the plan is going to be revealed tomorrow. It comes straight from God, so it's got to be good. And I just hope that I agree with it, because I don't want to be called a Satanist, but we'll see.
The use of God is becoming more prevalent. I've noticed this. Carrie Lake's doing it a lot. Yep. Mike Flynn has always been doing it, but he's certainly ramped it up. And there was one other person who was indicted. I can't remember who it was. It was a female, and she was talking about it.
Jenna Ellis.
Jenna Ellis, that's right.
Yep.
She's always talking about God, but it was Jenna Ellis. And saying, it's God's will. Whatever God wants is what's going to happen. It's a convenient excuse to refer to the invisible man in the sky for, what are they looking for? Retribution. I mean, what is this?
Yeah, because when you say God is on our side and God believes that what we're doing is right, that necessarily means that your political opponents are evil and against God. And that's what they say.
It's a clever play then, isn't it?
Yeah, they say it flat out. I mean, Democrats are anti-God, they're anti-Christian, which is, of course, not true. I mean, a huge percentage of Democrats are Christian.
Yeah.
I mean, they want to paint it like they are all Christian and believers, and all Democrats are godless, and atheists and and anti-Christian, which, I mean, it's true that there are many Democrats who don't believe in God, of course, but it doesn't mean that they're anti-Christian. They generally are tolerant, live and let live, just don't impose it on us, right?
Well, but they believe in freedom of religion. I mean, that's the whole point of living in the U.S. is that we all believe in freedom of religion. And a lot of this has been happening recently, where Republicans are using God as a leverage point and trying to make out that Democrats are anti-God and anti-Christian. And I'm not hearing enough Democrats, including from the president, to actually debunk this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Democrats who are devout and do have deep faith should be out there and more vocal about it. I think maybe some of the reason is because, a lot of the Democratic base doesn't necessarily want to hear, proselytizing. But I think that it is important to counter the message that Republicans are putting out there that nobody who's a Democrat believes in God, which is not true.
There's been quite a bit of campaigning in Iowa. DeSantis was there. Donald Trump was there. And when Donald Trump arrived, I'll play the clip, and then you can tell us why it's so amusing, why he's taken this tact.
It's a real honor to be here. We have a record that was set. The record is the largest crowd they've ever had, and I can see that because you can't get any more people here. but I'm very honored by it. It's a tremendous thing to watch this and to see this. Now, we do have a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day in Iowa, but this is a record crowd. They've never had anything even close, so I'm very happy by it. Thank you.
He doesn't have anything to say ever. So today it's about how many people you can squeeze onto a postage stamp.
I mean, this event, I watched this all live as it was happening I was probably following 25 journalists who were in that crowd.
Yeah.
And it's just the classic propaganda, master Goebbels manipulation of media that Jason Miller orchestrates for every event. From the going into the restaurants and saying food for everybody and then leaving, which happened again at this event, happens at every event. No one ever pays for his stuff that he promises people. And but in this particular case, okay, first of all, the Iowa State Fair is 13 days and it averages about 113,000 people a day. And that's whether politicians are there or not. In other words, the 95% of the people who go to the Iowa State Fair are going for corn dogs, pork chops, and Ferris wheels.
Right.
They're not interested in politicians. Plus, they have musicians and performers at night who are usually pretty good, because they draw 30, 40,000 at night just to watch the main act. So these people are not there for Donald Trump or for any other politician. Okay. So you got 130, it's a Saturday. So you got normally 115, 120,000 people come in no matter what, whether Trump's there or not. And by the way, the attendance for this particular Saturday was average. It was the same as it is every Saturday. It didn't go up. It didn't go down.
Even in that clip, it didn't look like anyone knew he was there. He was just
exactly
walking along with his security detail. But
here's what he did to manipulate the crowd. Yeah. So he has his Secret Service motorcade go in and blockade the entrance to the fair for 30 minutes. They had like 7 limos blocked, so no one could get into the fair for 30 minutes. So what happened is you have this bottleneck of people, and a lot of the people were pretty upset that they had to stand there and they couldn't get into the fair with their kids. So Trump waits in the car until this crowd gets all backed up. Then he jumps out. He's got his supporters in the front. They're cheering. People in the back aren't cheering. And then he's waving, and his campaign film crew gets the shot of him, and it looks like there's this massive crowd waiting for Trump.
He should have taken some toilet rolls with him as well. Then he could have done his old kind of Puerto Rico trick. I mean, this guy is so fake. Like everything that he does is theater. It's performative, and it is designed purely for the media. He is a made-for-television ex-president, soon to be in prison. And I feel like, that there must be a tipping point when people start to realize, just from talking, because there will be people there who talk to their friends or they go on Facebook and communicate about the fact that actually much of this is a charade. Because, the mainstream media believes he is far more popular than he really is. And this kind of, it's 25% or it's 35% of, Trump supporters. I think it's 25 or 35% of Republicans, right? I believe that, you've got your regular Republicans and then you've got your Trump section over here. That's what I believe. And I think we'll see that at the ballot box if he gets that far.
Well, why this was a mistake is that it might have played well for nationally, maybe for his people, but the people in Iowa know full well that he was lying there. I mean, and so, if the point is to win over Iowa voters, you don't do that by lying to Iowa voters when they know you're lying.
He thinks we are as stupid as he is. I mean, and I maintain that. He did have a meeting with Laura Loomer. Did that take place at the state fair as well, or was that in
right after? I think it was the next day. It was the next day. It was because he had to go back because he was hosting the Saudi golf tournament at his club, so he had to go right back for that. And the following day
sound dodgy at all, does it? The Saudi golf tournament. That sounds totally above board. Here's the Laura Loomer clip, and then we'll talk about what an interesting character she is.
Hey everybody, we're here at Bedminster. I'm with the greatest president ever. President Donald Trump, who is killing it right now. There's a new poll out, right? You're crushing it. You're up over 50 points. And it's a beautiful day here. Beautiful club. It's my first time here at Bedminster.
Well, it's great to have you, and you've been really very special. You work hard, and you are a very opinionated lady. I have to tell you that. And in my opinion, I like that.
Well, I appreciate that.
all of your support, and you've been terrific. And everybody appreciates your support.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to sit with you today. Pleasure. You're the best. I love you.
He looks really old in that clip, doesn't he? When he's not controlling the video, he always looks much older. Him saying you're a very opinionated lady is so interesting, because that's him kind of distancing himself from her far right propaganda. Well, but then he comes back and goes, "But I'm into it."
Okay, so that caught my attention because I do know Laura, and so I knew that she said something that probably maybe took him aback right before that. And I found out later what it was. So Laura told him to fire his criminal lawyers that he has now and to hire David Schoen, who represented Trump at one of his second impeachment trials. So apparently right before that camera came on, Laura was having the conversation telling him to fire his lauyers.
Do you think he might heed that advice? Because, he does need to hear it from somebody, doesn't he?
But the other thing, the whole thing set off a pretty big firestorm among the Republican primary voters, because you see, a few months ago, it was announced that Trump was hiring Laura Loomer to work on his campaign because she had been just hammering away at DeSantis day after day after day, and that got Trump's attention. Right. And so Trump said, "Look, we need to bring her in just to hire her to just go after DeSantis every day." Well, when that news got out, a lot of the Trump people, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, had a fit because they don't like Loomer. So Greene actually called Trump and said, "Do not hire Laura Loomer." And Trump backed down. He did not. He changed his mind, did not hire her. So, of course, that made Laura even more upset. So then when Laura's up at Bedminster a couple months later hanging out with Trump, all those same people, were pretty upset.
But that also goes to show the power of Marjorie Taylor Greene in this whole conversation. The fact that she can call the ex-president and the future Republican, primary candidate for president of the United States and say, "Don't hire that person." It reminds me a little bit of that famous speech that Ronald Reagan made on the balcony when one of the bosses from the big banks whispered in his ear, "Speed it up a bit." Do you remember that kind of infamous moment?
Yeah.
And it's like, who are the puppet masters in these situations? Marjorie Taylor Greene, as we know, who's a QAnon, total radicalized lunatic, now has total power at the very heart of the Republican Party.
Well, she definitely manipulates McCarthy too.
Right.
So and Trump. So I guess the question would be like, why is Loomer even there after that happened? Because she kind of got double crossed. Well, the reality is that most of the diehard Trump people never blame Trump for these things. So she blames Greene and others for that. Definitely doesn't blame the decision maker, who's Donald Trump. So once again, he gets off scot-free.
It's kind of interesting to me to know how much of a decision maker Donald Trump is, because, he doesn't really have much of an opinion. And when he came into politics, he was very much a blank canvas. He was a bit of a racist, but he donated to Democrats and Republicans to do his bidding.
True.
And then he kind of finds his audience, in this case, the right wing and the far right and, the extremes, brings them all into his fold and basically just goes where the gullible money is, because, he's a businessman, so it's all about fundraising. But how much, in terms of decision making, we've talked about Stephen Miller, we've talked about, Bannon, people behind the scenes who created very much this kind of Donald Trump or Trumpism, as it's come to be known. I wonder how much of Trumpism is actually Donald Trump versus these advisors.
Yeah, if you go back and you look at the issues that he really felt strongly about prior to 2016, like he gave a million interviews where he was asked from time to time, will you ever run for president? And what do you care about? There was very, very few things that he felt strongly about. Right. I mean, he was pro-choice, which he said in interviews in the past that he was pro-choice. He was always very like law and order, lock everybody up, throw away the key, especially Black people. So he was always for that. He was always an isolationist. He was always for big tax cuts for the wealthy.
For himself. So
that's pretty much it. I mean, there wasn't the whole build the wall and all that stuff. I mean, he never talked about stuff like that. No. That's all new. All the evangelical, all the Christian stuff, that's all completely invented, stuff.
Now, we've all been watching with horror the pictures coming out of Maui, the island of Hawaii that is burned with this horrific wildfire, and over 100 people now dead. The numbers are going to go up. We now know it's a kind of hurricane just pushed the flames across like a 6-lane freeway. I mean, this is how serious this was. It looks like a bomb's gone off there. Total devastation. How did Donald Trump choose to go about respecting this event? Here's the clip.
The sad thing is it should never have happened. Our government was not prepared, and very importantly, the aftermath is going very poorly, with the governor of the island wanting to do nothing but blame it on global warming and other things that just happened to pop into his head. It is a disgraceful thing that Joe Biden refuses to help or comment on the tragedy in Maui, just as he refused to help or comment on the train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, for a very, very long time.
I'm just kind of speechless, Ron.
Yeah, I mean, this is a familiar playbook. They did it in East Palestine too, is as soon as anything bad happens, some kind of natural disaster, train derailment, whatever, that is clearly nobody in the administration's fault, they immediately look to gain, score political points. And my one criticism of the administration here is that they continue to be either unaware of that or don't think that that's a problem. And
optics,
and it is a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what you have is them capitalizing on the fact that this happened during Biden's vacation. So they're, on Fox, they're super cutting between showing the devastation of Maui and showing Biden having a good time on the beach, saying the president doesn't give a shit, And so even though that's not true, and the government is doing everything they can, and the last thing you want is a presidential entourage to go into a disaster zone, but the optics of it are bad. And I think that what he was referring to there is when Biden was getting into his car from the beach and some pool person shouted out, who's a right-wing reporter, do you have a comment about Maui? And he maybe said no comment. It was hard to hear, but that's what they said he said. And of course that got viral. It's just the administration really does have to do a better job. And Buttigieg admitted this after East Palestine, of getting out early and communicating with the people of what they are doing. They are doing stuff behind the scenes, but they must communicate what they're doing.
I would agree. And, this is the thing about trial by media, right? You can make or break a politician. You can make or break a candidate through careful editing. Biden on the beach, fires in Hawaii, as you describe. And these days, where technology and media is everywhere, wherever we look, not to mention AI and deep fakes and everything that goes with it, you can create a level of propaganda that is so compelling and so convincing that to people that don't understand the process, they can be completely drawn in by it.
Yep, and that's what Fox does. Yeah. That's how Fox has all their viewers. They do it day after day after day. And in this event, they've been doing it constantly. So the good news is Biden's going to go there, and that's good. And I think he should go there. And remember, the firestorm was going on when Buttigieg hadn't visited East Palestine for a week or so. And Trump immediately went there, of course, right. And capitalized on that. Accomplished nothing. He just went there for 45 minutes like he usually does and leaves. Passes out some bottled water. But when Buttigieg went there, everything calmed down and the issue went away. And so that really should have showed them, like, if you just get out front of these things and talk to the people, it won't be an issue. That you take that issue away from them.
Yeah,
but they just
I
don't
feel like
seem
there
to really
hasn't
understand that.
I want to see kind of the army, you know. I want to see the U.S. Army.
Yeah.
I want to see the generals on camera dealing with it. I want to see human chains of people in camouflage. You know, I really feel like, because this stuff is going on, and yet we're just not seeing it. And you know, the reality is that a lot of people who have evacuated are now really feeling the pain, because there's just the whole place. I mean, the whole place has gone, and it was beautiful and thriving. Okay, let's move on and talk about, talking of generals, former General Mike Flynn, who twice lied to the FBI, let's never forget that, and then got a pardon from Trump at the end of his presidency, is back again, and he's ramping up the QAnon material, isn't he? Should we have a listen to him before we have a chat about it? Okay. Well, where is it though? That's the thing. Is it in here? Maybe it's not in here. Okay. Well, you tell us about it, and while I'm trying to find it.
Well, he had two controversies this week. One, he talked about, he was critical of mothers during the Holocaust who gave up their children to go on separate train cars to be exterminated. And he was talking about how could moms let their children go? And he also mentioned that there weren't that many guards there, and maybe they could have fought back or something. I
found the clip now, so let me play it, because
this is a different clip that you have, but go ahead. Yeah,
right, because this is going to give us. You'll just see. I mean, just look at his eyes. This guy is on another planet.
People are going to find out here within a year or less. You're going to go to the gas station the second time in a month to fill up your truck or your car, and all of a sudden you might find that your card gets denied, right? It doesn't mean that you have no money in the bank, but the initial indicators will be that the banks are going to start denying people the use of their money. My perspective as a guy that worked in the world of intelligence, those become opportunities for foreign intelligence services to go and recruit people. And they're easy to recruit because they will fall prey to large sums of money, even small sums of money, to nefarious, sexual activities that they will be compromised in. I mean, all this stuff is like made for TV, but it's for real. Unbelievable capability to be able to monitor every single financial transaction that you do. And so if they decide that they're going to control those transactions, they can do that and I mean, not like in 6 months or 10 years, they can do it right now. I've had this particular card, and I have to do this all the time. This particular card has been denied twice in the last month. And I know that there's money in the bank, but it's been denied twice. So I kind of go back and I say, why? And I call up the bank, and the bank says, we don't know why. In order to create a very, a sort of a lower class of servants for as Klaus Schwab says, we have, and you do his voice much better than I do, but where he says we have 600 of the smartest individuals in the world that are now basically controlling the world. That's how these people think, because they control banks, they control corporations, they control decisions, they control how we move, they control the entire air, road, rail networks, every aspect of our lives. People don't realize this.
I think the rabbit down the hole is the one that got his credit card, and that's the reason why it got denied. I mean, I've heard this from a few people now, where something quite ordinary happens, and then they build a whole conspiracy around it, and it must be the deep state taking control, stealing your money. I mean, again, people believe this stuff.
Yeah, I had an ATM ate my card about a week ago, so I guess they're tracking me too.
I think so.
Yeah. So, I mean, the reason why that was in so many cuts, I edited that because that was an hour and a half interview that I watched It was horrible.
Well,
so
thank you for doing the abridged version, because I did not want to sit through that.
I spliced together like the different parts of his argument that he's making. I mean, Michael Flynn has just come up with so many incredible, ridiculous conspiracies. And I'm not downplaying the fact that there are too many oligarchs in the world that control too much shit and have too much say in our lives. I mean, that clearly is true, but they take it to the nth degree.
Yeah.
So his theory is, that there's this, it's a QAnon, straight QAnon theory, that there's this 600 global elite people who rule the world and control everything. And what they're about to do is seize all of the currency around the world, all the money, like all currency, all coins. He's saying like in the next 6 months, this is all the money is going to be seized. All the cash is going to be sucked out of everybody's bank account. And then they're going to give you a digital currency. And that's how they're going to control all of us and make us slaves. Is that's what they're going to do. And then there's going to be 600 people who rule the world, and 6 billion people who are all slaves to them, working, being paid in digital currency.
I mean, it's the stuff of science fiction or even Scientology. I mean, we're getting to a point now where, you can't really tell if they're using this stuff for the purposes of fundraising.
Yeah, I think he is. Yeah.
Right.
But he believes half of it. I should mention that the sexual blackmail part was a funny part where it was too long. He was too long-winded for me to include it in that clip. But what he said was to get all the state legislatures in the United States to go along with this digital currency scheme. These 600 people were going to fly them all to a conference in London and basically like set them up with hookers or whatever and get them in sexually compromising positions to blackmail them to get them to agree to this scheme. That was part of what he said.
This guy was the former national security advisor. I mean,
that's right. Trump first choice.
Right. And we have to, and also Trump has said that he'll bring him back. If he wins the election, he wants Mike Flynn back as national security advisor, back in
or
uniform.
Secretary of Defense or CIA director.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's completely terrifying. Not to mention that he, colluded with the Russians. It's like, it's beggars belief that this guy is still around. He is grifting. He is up and down the country doing these events, these kind of very kind of godly events. And Trump did the same thing, didn't he? Immediately after the indictment was announced, he's out there sending out text messages, fundraise, send me money, we can fix this, I'm doing this for you. I mean, how much of this do you think is almost a job, a God-given job that Mike Flynn feels versus just making a living?
I mean, what these guys have done is take the old, Scarborough talks about this all the time.
Yeah.
And he's right. They take the old 1980s Jimmy Swaggart, Tammy Faye Baker, televangelist model, and they brought it to politics.
Yeah.
And it's they've combined it with like Home Shopping Network, QVC, and they've turned conspiracies into cash, and
via Christianity.
Yeah, and it's using the same playbook as the old evangelical, people who rip people off.
The Righteous Gemstones, which I recommend, very good TV show with John Goodman. Okay, let's talk about Representative Ronny Jackson. Now, he is the former doctor, Trump's doctor, whilst Trump was in office. He has shouted profanities and cursed at Texas troopers during a disagreement at a rodeo in late July. And now this footage has been released, this kind of body camera footage. Is that right?
Yeah. So let me tell you what happened. Because, these stories, Ronnie told the complete fabrication. And then, of course, the body cam is released and it shows that he was lying. So what was happening was a woman was having a seizure, I think an epileptic seizure. And Ronnie thought it was a diabetic incident. And so what Ronnie was trying to do as this girl was thrashing around on the ground having an epileptic seizure was shove a gumball into her mouth, which was like, definitely you don't want to do that because they could choke on it. It's not a diabetic thing. And so he's trying to shove a gumball and the cops, grabbed him and pulled him off of this girl. And they had this altercation. And the police also said that he appeared very intoxicated and he had been drinking, which of course he denies. So there was conflicting stories, and then the body cam stuff comes out, and it backed up the police. And Ronny is not backing the blue in this.
Well,
clip.
he's a former military doctor. He also is a terrible doctor because he was convinced that Donald Trump is not obese. So if that's not the test, I don't know what is. Anyway, here's the body cam footage. I'm not sure that there's no sound on this, so maybe we'll just have a little chat.
No, I asked you to get back.
No, you did not. You came in, you flew in, and you were full on.
I did ask you to get back, and you did not get back.
You better recalculate, mother.
Multiple people asked you to get back.
No, nobody asked me to get back.
Yes, they did. This lady did.
No, she didn't.
Yes, she did. Everybody here asked you to get back. All right. When multiple officers asked you to get back in EMS...
Nobody asked me to get back.
Yes, they did.
No, they didn't. I was talking to her about her blood sugar, her blood pressure. You were the first mother to say something to me. The first one. Nobody did.
The parents didn't want either of y'all there. We were trying
Nobody said something to me. Nobody. The first person I said...
I said, hey, can y'all stay back? Nobody listened.
The first person I heard was you rolling in, and you were like, get the back in my face.
I'm fine. I'm fine. I'll apologize for it.
Walk with me. Goodness gracious.
We're fine.
Dude, I'm just telling you, man. No, stop. No, I'm not going to. I'm going to. I'm just going to tell you. You and I got a drink. I was just trying to help, dude.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with who I am or what I do. I was in the yard dog, man.
Okay, let me speak. I know you were there to help, right? But I got EMS coming on scene. I got multiple parents asking.
Nobody was there yet, though.
Yes, they were.
No, they weren't. They were just rolling up as I was in there.
I said, hey, we got a clerk coming. Multiple people moved out the way. You came down on your knees.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Representative Ronny Jackson, MD. I mean, he was off his face there, wasn't he?
Yeah, it's a U.S. congressman right there. Trump's most loyal doctor, the candy man. So, I mean, Ronny's got issues. Ronny's. I think we're gonna wake up someday and read something about Ronny that's tragic to some people.
Do you know him? Because I mean, you're referring to him in a very informal first name situation. I mean, have you had much contact with him?
No. I don't. It's just that I follow Ronny so closely in everything he says and does, because he is a source of entertainment to me, because it always seems like, and I joke about this on Twitter, happy hour, because most of his craziest tweets are between like 4:30 and 6:30, which is generally happy hour when he, on the East Coast. So I always picture him sitting in a bar on his third martini or his third scotch, banging out, these crazy tweets. So yeah, he clearly has either a drinking or a drug problem, a substance problem of some kind happening.
Maybe it was his cocaine at the White House.
Yeah,
who knows?
One never knows. Yeah.
Let me just ask you a question about representatives who don't seem to be doing any representing, because this is something I've really noticed. Because, where I'm from in the UK, there is a requirement on members of parliament to kind of hold weekly surgeries. They're very much in contact through social media and through email with their constituents. Obviously, we're talking about much smaller areas, so I guess it's a little easier. But, there's a lot more representatives here in the US for this, larger terrain. But I do get the feeling a lot of them are in it for the wrong reasons. They're either in it for the power or the money or the connections or the lobbying or the jobs that come after they lose their elections. I mean, there's a few. It's so tragic, because people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is absolutely on her game as a representative, and I follow all her social media. She is at events. She's answering people's questions directly. She is really taking the job very, very seriously, and still finding time to kind of publicize what she's doing, which I think is great because it gives a level of transparency. But, what percentage of these Republican representatives really have no interest in public office, public service, and they're just in it for their own reasons?
It's really in how you view the job. I mean, there are some people who view serving the district and the interests of the district and constituent services as their number one priority, you
like
know,
a Joe Manchin type.
And there are some who do not believe that. I mean, they do
like a Joe
they
Manchin
do the
type.
bare minimum. And what they would say is that although the people of their district have sent them to Washington, they are there to represent the country as a whole. This would be their argument. Yeah. And they're supposed to do what's in the best interest of the country, not just for their district. And so that would be the argument or the excuse that they would give. The best representatives do both. You know, in other words, sometimes you might vote for something that might be against your district's best interest. We saw that really like in the 1990s after the Cold War, we closed so many military bases around the country. And there were many representatives who voted to close bases in their own districts because it was in the best interest of the country.
Yes.
That just doesn't happen very often anymore.
It's very interesting to me because, you know, the job comes with a decent salary and perks. And, you know, it's so interesting that once, you know, you spend all your time and your effort and your energy and your money kind of trying to get elected. And then once you get elected, there are no checks and balances on what you do until election time 4 or 5 years later.
Well, I think that the people that are in safe districts that are like plus 20, plus 30%, where there's just no way they're going to lose, they tend to do less constituent services than people in the closer district. You notice Boebert right now. Yeah. Boebert is doing tons of this stuff all of a sudden because she almost lost last time. So she understands that one of the criticisms of her was that she just wanted to be on Newsmax and Fox every night and didn't care about her district. So this term, every waking minute that she's not in DC, she's running around her district because she understands that that's what she has to do to save her job.
It's just how much of the running around the district is paying lip service and pressing the flesh.
In her case, all of it.
All of it versus actually like seeing things through. Yeah. Okay, we have to finish soon, but I don't want this show to go by without a good humiliation of Ron DeSanctimonious or whatever he's called this week. He has also been at the Iowa State Fair. This time he took to the bumper cars and it didn't kind of quite go as he was hoping because they were kind of trying to make him look relatable, you know, in spite of these awkward interactions where he does this kind of weird laugh and the head goes back and all this kind of stuff. And his wife Casey was there and their 3 small children, and it wasn't Disneyland, put it that way. Should we have a little look at it and then get a sense of what's going on?
No phone. On the line.
Fascinating.
So, as we said, the vast majority of people go to the Iowa State Fair to have fun and to ride rides. And so they are not there to watch Ron and Casey have fun and ride rides. So I put this out and I speculated that they shut down the ride. It looked like to me just for the 2 of them to go on at a peak hour of the fair. And there had to have been a lot of people waiting to go on this ride. Now, the DeSantis campaign immediately went nuts and said, no, this is not true. You know, but what we have learned, all the facts have come out after the fact. What we learned is there was a big line. There was a line of people waiting to get on the ride. The DeSantis camp claims, oh, anybody was free to go on the ride, but they just didn't want to go. They just wanted to let us go, which is nonsense. I mean, nobody believes that. He did it again with the Ferris wheel. He went on the Ferris wheel with Joni Ernst, the senator, and no one else was on the Ferris wheel. So again, he claimed, well, anybody could have ridden it. Oh, isn't it odd, though, that 2 of the most popular attractions at the fair, when you're riding it, nobody else is riding it? And the reality is
he can clear a room in moments.
This is his MO. He doesn't like people, and he wants to keep people away from him.
So let's kind of finish this conversation in not the most kind of, not necessarily in glory, because Ron DeSantis has a habit of picking his nose and then trying to find an unsuspecting victim to kind of wipe it on, doesn't he? I'm speaking very explicitly here, and I apologize if anyone's just having their late lunch. But we've got a little clip that you posted. I'll show it. It's very short, and then we'll try not to talk about it. I'll show it again because you put it in slow motion. So he's basically done the nose thing, and then what's he done? Like wiped it on someone's hat or hair?
Well, before he walked up to the guy, he wiped his nose.
Yeah.
And then he went to touch the guy's hat right after wiping his nose. So, yeah. And if you watch the lady to the right of him, watch her face, you can see her reaction. That's the best part of the clip, is the lady's reaction. So this is, we've chronicled and documented this, that he does this all the time.
Yeah.
He has either a nervous habit or there's something going on with his nose that it's running a lot, where he constantly goes and wipes his nose, and then he tends to then shake people's hand or even, pat them on the back, and it's just a gross habit that he has.
Maybe this is why the coronavirus numbers were so high in Florida, because he single-handedly spread the virus.
Right.
Okay, listen, we have to finish, but always a pleasure. And once again, congratulations on your new role as editor-in-chief of MeidasTouch.com. I recommend everybody heads there right now, takes a look at some of the developing stories. There's a news feed. You can also take a look at all of the contributors. If you click on that, you'll see me there, and you can click through to our social media. And even at the MeidasTouch YouTube channel, there is now a way to look at playlists of different contributors. So if you just want to see videos from one contributor, then you can do that right there too. I'm Anthony Davis. You can catch me every day on the 5 Minute News podcast, and on Sunday hosting the Weekend Show. Ron, do you want to come back and do this again next week?
I think we will. Maybe we'll have another indictment. Who knows?
Oh, that would be great. All right. Have a great week, everybody. Take care.